Welcome back to the Chosen Journey with the guy on the t-shirt and the guy beside me, Big Money Grip, Steve Carsey. Steve, we're on to magical chapter 55. Can you believe it?
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been a wild ride. We've had some guests and we've kind of just done our thing and walked our path and have listened to some of our viewers and some of their replies on their journey. So it's been a lot of fun to work through this and get to where we're at.
And we got to see the end of the 2022 season. We got the off season, the hot stove, World Baseball Classic, spring training. The magical 2023 MLB season is upon us. It's in full swing as of this taping. We're about 2 weeks in. Today's chapter, I had an episode all ready to go, but we're going to have to save it for next week, Steve, because something has come up and the world is buzzing. And you're going to love and hate this, but there's something magical about the world of baseball when all of a sudden a hot prospect who's tearing up the minors is getting the big recall. The baseball world has gone batty for Brett Baty. So he is making his big return. The word on the street is the New York Mets prospect has been recalled and he'll be possibly in the lineup tonight for the Mets. Uh interesting prospect. What are your thoughts on Mr. Brett Baty?
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things, right? I mean, you have options left. You get sent to the minor leagues out of spring training. You get off to a good start in AAA, whether it's injuries or a guy isn't playing well, and you get an opportunity. And having been a high prospect and being in the big leagues before, the Mets think he's ready. And now he gets his opportunity to get back to the major league level and show what he's got, and hopefully he can stick because that's everybody's goal, right? Is to get to the big leagues and then to kind of just find what works for you well and carve out what you do. The intangibles that you do well and stick in the big leagues and have a fruitful career as long as you can.
Conservatively, I guess I'm going to understate it, but basically the Mets are calling up the next David Wright, and they're going to have their key third baseman for the next decade or two. That's what it sounds like. The media seems to think right now, as far as buzzing. Steve, from last night, it was funny. There was Sunday night, there was word of the recall, and then Monday morning, it seems like everywhere on my feed, every single article or second article was about him. And lo and behold, of course, when you get a home run in your first major league game, which happened last year, spring training this year in his first game, and I think it was his first at bat in spring training, gets a home run. People are going to take notice of that. The fact that it's in New York, I think helps it quite a bit. What would you think? There's something about New York prospects compared to all others.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You're in a big market, right? You're dealing with a team like the Mets, whose payroll is the highest in Major League Baseball. Whenever there's news about the New York Mets, you're going to hear it. I mean, not that you're not going to hear it from other teams, but it's just a little more prominent being in a big market and coming out of New York. So, he's been highly touted for a very long time. Like I said, he's gotten to the big leagues. He's had some success. For whatever reason, coming out of spring training, they just didn't have a spot for him, and now something's opened up, and the opportunity arises again, and let's see if he can take advantage of it. And like you said, be there for the next 10 plus years or so.
First round pick in 2019. Most had him around the 19th, 20th prospect overall in baseball. I think the fact that he did get his call last year, obviously getting that cup of coffee makes a really big difference versus somebody who's never experienced it before. I don't know what the numbers are as far as the measures, but there's enough prospects I've seen over the course, I guess, of my life and my career where you come and have that cup of coffee, maybe you fall on your face a little bit, it takes time to adjust. And then the second time around, it seems a little smoother. Have you noticed the same thing?
Well, we've discussed this before, right? I mean, coming up to the big leagues for the first time is a whirlwind. There's a lot of things that are going on. There's an adjustment period, no matter who you are, when you get to the big leagues. The younger you are, probably the little bit more difficult it is to get acclimated and accustomed to the big leagues lifestyle, the day in and day out grind, the routines that you need to put forth. And some guys adjust uh, a little bit more quickly than what other guys do. But at the end of the day, baseball is baseball. It's at a higher level. It's a little bit more refined and polished players on the field. And it's just time for him to get acclimated and try to go out there and put his best foot forward and, hold down the position that they're going to put him in.
I also don't find it that it's a bad thing necessarily when you don't make the team out of spring training. You know, it's funny how the media and the fans can say, "Oh my God, they were tearing it up in spring training. How have they possibly not been on the opening day roster?" And how many people made that opening day roster did not do so well and then had to get sent back versus somebody I would say that didn't have to suffer through the hoopla of opening day. April's a funny creature when you have a lot of weather related delays or postponed games, get time to settle in the minors a little bit, and then come in a couple weeks later, a month later. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. And I mean, how much confidence is he coming in right now? I mean, hitting 400 with 5 home runs this early in the season. Uh, Everything from the Mets management when they were interviewed on him, not confirming that he was getting called up at the time, but they said, I don't think he has anything left to prove. Like he's doing what he's got to do. Let's see him do it at this level.
Yeah, absolutely. Spring training is a funny thing, right? I mean, guys come in and yes, you're competing for a job. Uh, you know, they have to put you in the spots where it's early in the game because you're going to have, the starters going 2, 3, 4 innings. But again, early in spring training, starters are working on their fastball, they're working on their command. So you're going to get more fastballs to hit in spring training. So for hitters and evaluation process, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky in spring training. I think most teams have a pretty good idea uh, what the competition is and how they're going to kind of watch how things go throughout spring training. For the most part, most teams know, uh, you know, essentially what their final roster is going to be within 2 or 3 players. The utility players, maybe a couple extra relievers that they got to try to fit in towards the middle of end of spring training. So, like you said, there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of factors that go into account as teams and front offices are making decisions to send the guy down to get him started in AAA and then bring him up, or if he really has a legit chance of making a team coming out of spring training.
Now I gotta ask you a couple questions come to my mind here as we're discussing it. And I know you growing up outside Chase Stadium, growing up as a Mets fan, but having played for the Yankees, the same prospect, if Baty's doing this in the minors and getting called up at this point, going to the Mets versus let's say the Yanks had said Donaldson is getting designated or Donaldson has another injury going back on the injured reserve and we're going to call him up. Going to start as a third baseman Monday evening for the Mets or Yankees. Same amount of pressure, or is it different when you wear those pinstripes, in your opinion?
Listen, I think there's pressure no matter what, and no matter what your team you are on. There's the human element to a game that you just can't say, I'm going to put this kid in Milwaukee or I'm going to put this kid in Cincinnati, and there's not going to be that much pressure. Yeah, maybe the expectation might be a little bit higher in New York or, with the Yankees and the Mets, and maybe not as high with like a smaller market team or whatnot. But there's a human element of a guy being nervous, of a guy's heartbeat, and different things that go along with that. So I just think there's a little bit more fanfare when you're in a bigger market. Dodgers, obviously, Mets, Yankees, teams like that, and not that one should be elevated over another, but your first time in the big leagues, it's a nerve wracking experience. There ain't no doubt about it.
And it seems kind of funny because it's almost an embarrassment of riches when you think about the Mets where they're at as far as their payroll, the kind of free agents and trades they've been able to make, and then being able to call up a prospect like this and being able to slot him in, and how many smaller markets, wish they could have had him, but he wasn't drafted first overall. So there were 18 other teams that had passed up on him for whatever reason. So when I hear those kind of complaints, I'm saying, well, you know what? They didn't pick in the top. Baseball is a funny sport compared to all other sports, in my opinion. You look at hockey, you look at football, you look at basketball. the draft is all about the first three, the first five, seven. After that, it's really hit and miss. Baseball, totally different creature as far as especially bonus babies and being able to structure the bonuses and how the deals you can make. And sometimes you're signing a person, taking somebody above their slot, but then signing below the amount. And sometimes you think somebody's not signable whatsoever. They fall through. It turns out they do sign. Baseball, I think you have to be very creative. It's a real scouts game compared to any other sport as far as being able to find those gems in all sorts of rounds.
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of projection that goes on in baseball. Who a guy is at 18 might not be the same guy who he is at 21 or 22. If you take a guy at 18 years old out of high school and you got to have a projection of where you think he's going to be at in 3 or 4 years. When colleges draft, not sorry, when professionals drafting out of college, whether it be football or basketball, they're 21, 22, they're growing into men, and you kind of see where they're at in their progression at that point. Not that they can't get better, you still got to project, but I think it's a lot harder in baseball as a scout to project what a kid is going to be from 18 to 22 than what it is from 22 to 25 as in some other sports. Like, who a lineman is if he's 6'5", 6'6", 345 in football, right? In college, you know what you're going to get and where he's going to grow to. You draft a kid who's 6'3", 175 at 18 years old, you have to project his athleticism. You have to project a lot of things that you think he's going to do well. Obviously, arm action for pitchers, stuff, velocity. As a hitter, you got to look at swing path and what kind of raw power he has at that age. Like, there's so many little intricacies that go along with the scouting portion of it that I think makes it a little bbit more difficult.
Think about Brian Taylor. Think about Appel. There's so many. I mean, the list of guys on and on and on. Joe Charbonneau. It's you never ever know. And even we talk about Mike Trout, and that's been brought up many many times, and how the Yankees were hot on him, and the way their drafting position worked out, they couldn't draft him in soon enough. But again, there's so many teams that passed up on him, and then I think it's a case where I assume management goes to the scouts sometimes and says, look at this guy. He's been called up. He's an immediate star. You watched him play. How is he not part of our team? I assume there's an accountability standpoint.
There's always an accountability standpoint with anything. But again, as great as these scouts are, and as much experience that they have doing this over the years, there still are mistakes made. There still are little things that scouts miss. Like, they're so detailed. I don't think really a lot of people understand how detailed they go into a person's life and the background as a kid and as a player, and what kind of person they are, what kind of character they have. When they're watching you, they see how you react after you make an out, or if you had a bad outing, and see if you're a thick-skinned or tough kid, or if you're just going to melt down, because baseball is a game of failure, and it's really hard. And I'm trying to teach that to 12-year-olds right now, and it's really hard to get it through to them that their expectation is that they're going to get a hit every time up, and you try to explain to them, like, no, that's not how the game works, and it's not going to happen. There's going to be some adversity in this game, and you're going to have to learn how to deal with it. And I think that's always a challenge, no matter if you're 12, 18, 21, 25, sometimes even 30. There's things during a major league season that really wear guys down, and there's a grind, and guys go through adversity and have tough spots, and they just got to learn how to be mentally strong and work through those.
That's where having really good family support, friends, makes a big difference. I remember when I was watching the video of Baty's home run, his first major league home run last year, and they had mom mic'd up, and they were showing her and her reaction. She was in the ballpark at the time. When you watch the parents' reaction of their kid's first game, first at bat, first home run, it warms your heart completely. It's the best feeling on the planet. And he just, I was watching that home run. I went back and watched the spring training game when he hit the first home run this year. Same stance, same everything. The kid, he looks like he's like 15, but he's really cool, calm, and collected. He's got that Eric Davis, almost like the way he was holding the bat silently and then went into his actual stance right before the pitcher released. And I like him. I like what he's about. I like that short stroke. As long as obviously health is number one. He got injured last year, and of course it happens. If not for that injury, probably would have been playing for the remainder of the season. And now coming up healthy, I saw he was having a little bit of injury issues as far as his thumb again, I believe, in the minors. But as long as he stays healthy, stays within himself, could be up there now and staying put. So definitely wish him well in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, health is a major part of how guys are successful. It's really hard, one, to play the game when you're healthy, never mind when something's hurting you. But yeah, at the end of the day, he's getting his opportunity. We'll see how he does, and hopefully takes full advantage of it.
I've brought up before the movie Major League many times. It's just a movie that really left an imprint on me. And I know it's somewhat realistic, somewhat very unrealistic. Obviously, we don't have guys with Joe Boo and giving rum to him and hoping that it'll fix his batting drought. But in all seriousness, Steve, one thing that has always played on my mind, I haven't asked you, and I've really been curious. Let's take this scenario, for example. You have Eduardo Escobar, you have the starting third baseman. Let's say in the scenario he gets either designated for assignment or he's on the bench, and he was a starting third baseman, came out of spring training, even has his friends on the team. All of a sudden the rookie comes up, takes his position away from him. Is there any kind of animosity? I mean, not speaking of their particular situation, but just in general, when you have more of a veteran clubhouse and the rookie comes in that's been hot, the veteran is struggling, and you got that switch over, or do guys understand this is a business, this is their statistics, this is the realities of it?
Well, it depends on a player, right? I mean, some guys get more mad than others. Some guys don't agree, but that's things that players can't control. That's the front office and their decision, and they go through their process of what is best for the team. And if a guy's not performing at the level, and it's time to give a young guy the opportunity, then that's what they choose. I would hope that they just communicate that to the veteran player that they've signed for the year, and just say, hey, listen, we're at a point right now. This is where we're at. This is what we're thinking. Unfortunately, right now it's your position, and we need to try this young kid out and bring him up and give him an opportunity early in the season. You're just not playing as well as we had hoped or we had thought, and then go on with whatever the decision is. Hey, we're going to DFA you, or you're going to be a utility player now, and I want you to be ready when you come off the bench. If we need the pinch hit late in the game with you, but they're professionals. Like I think as competitive as guys are, yeah, you're upset that maybe you're not starting anymore, but that's where you find out who a guy really is. Is he gonna hang his head and go hide in the corner? Is he gonna be like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna continue to work hard, and I'm gonna try to get my spot back the best I can by showing them what I can do when I get the opportunity.
When you're a young Brett Baty and you come into a veteran New York Mets clubhouse, I don't know if it's much different than when we had talked in previous episodes about a young Steve Carsey walking into the Oakland A's locker room, and you walked into a very veteran clubhouse back in those days. For a young rookie like him going into a veteran clubhouse, what is his best bet, best shot as far as winning over those veterans? And like, especially, it's one thing, when we come back to the Jays a lot because I'm based in Toronto, Ontario, but when you have a lot of these players that played in the minors together and then came up together versus somebody signed as a free agent or as a rookie on their own into a veteran clubhouse, you don't necessarily have the same click. You don't know the coaches as well. How do you win over a veteran clubhouse when you're one of the sole rookies in there?
So I look at it two different ways here with that question. The first way is with Baty. Uh, he's a Mets product, right? So if you're a Mets product, you've been around the organization and you've been around the system, and the coaches know you. So he was up in the big leagues last year. He went through all of spring training. The players, the veterans, they already know who he is. So going back to it is like he's been part of their system for a very long time, since 2019. The coaches know him, the players know him. He was in the big leagues last year. He was in all of spring training. So they already know this guy. And for him to get accustomed to that, I think that's already been established and is already there. So he should be fairly comfortable. I'll just go to this, whether it's my which was my situation, and many other situations that it happens. I was a Toronto farmhand. I got traded in '93. I went to the Oakland system, and I was in the Oakland system for 10 days before I got called up to the big leagues. So not knowing anybody in their system, the coaches, the players in the big leagues, obviously, because I was only 21 at the time, was a little different situation for me. Um, the way I handled it was, you know, I've always grown up in New York. I've always been in some tough situations. And I'm not saying this is a tough situation, but it's one that I wasn't really accustomed to. I get traded, I make two starts for their AA team, and then I get called up to the big leagues. So I just wanted to go in there, be professional, handle myself the way I always handled myself, be a good teammate. As nervous as I was, walk into the clubhouse, look each man in the eye, shake their hand, introduce myself, whether it be Tony La Russa from the first time as the manager, Dave Duncan as the pitching coach, any of the other coaches, and then same with the players. Go there and feel like you belong there, right? Like you work hard to get to a certain echelon or a certain place in your career. And when you get that opportunity, you got to believe in yourself, that that opportunity presented itself because you have done things well. And other people have seen that. So that's how I looked at it, is like, okay, I belong here. The people who traded for me believe I belong here, and now I'm getting this opportunity, and I got to go out and do what I just am accustomed to, is playing baseball, executing my pitches. It doesn't matter if you're an A ball, double A, triple A, or the big leagues. Baseball is baseball. You're playing with more grown men in the major leagues and not younger players, but the execution part of the game doesn't change. You still have to make your pitch. You still have to, uh, throw timing off of the hitters. You still got to mix your pitches. You still got to cover bases. That portion of the game does not change. And I think that's the most important thing that guys need to understand is, yeah, you're in a different arena. You're in a different spot, as far as like a team goes. But the evolution and the game itself does not change. Whether you're a hitter or a pitcher, still got to slow the game down. You still got to have the thought process of what you want to do. And God, as a young player, that's really hard to do on a daily basis, because your mind can wander on so many different things. But as I tell the boys that I'm coaching and my son, is you have to trust the process. Like there'll be time that you need results, but the process will get you to the results you need. And if you understand that and can stick with that, I think it just puts you in a better spot and is more beneficial for you as a player.
Wise words. There's a reason why you were a pitching coach, a bullpen coach, and there's a reason why you were coaching in Major League Baseball, because being able to embark that wisdom, having been there yourself. So, on summing up today's chapter, I got to ask you, Steve, in a little role playing, if you are sitting there in the clubhouse with Brett Baty, it's almost game time now. Everybody's about to leave. He turns to you and says, "Cars, any final words you can tell me before I go out there? What would you say to him tonight?"
It's like, young man, just go out and have a lot of fun. Do what you need to do. The game has not changed. Get your pitch, see your pitch, hit your pitch, and control what you can control. And that's going out and doing your best.
Love it. Well, fantasy baseball team owners all over the globe are extremely excited for the new addition to their roster. The Mets are extremely excited for the addition to their roster. The New York Mets fans are clamoring. So we certainly wish him well. And I don't know if he's going to be David Wright 2.0, the way I said it tongue in cheek. But I think he's going to do really well, Steve. I have a good feeling for him. And, there's one thing about this game of baseball, as new blood keeps coming in, new names, it builds excitement. It builds the younger fan base. And you know what? That's a great thing. So if you got fans sitting in, playing stickball or playing softball even, and they pretend they're the next Brett Baty, and buy those jerseys and get all clamored and excited for the sport, it's a good thing.
Absolutely. We wish him the best and look forward to following his career.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for those insights. And As we pause today, we'll come back next week and we're going to be talking, lo and behold, about the hottest team in baseball to start the year. So stay tuned for that. Big Money Grip, always a pleasure. Thank you again for the insights.
Thanks, Jonathan. We'll see you soon.